Welcome back, everybody. My name is Tucker, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about some interesting NBA news going all the way back to the offseason of 2019 and the recruitment of Kawhi Leonard to the LA Clippers. There have been some new details that have come out, basically just talking about the fact that it's possible the Clippers, quote-unquote, cheated to get Kawhi Leonard, and they broke some NBA rules in order to bring him in back in the summer of 2019. There was an investigation into that situation at the time that he came to LA, and there's now another one being opened up by the NBA where they're looking into potential recruitment of Kawhi Leonard in terms of benefits that were provided to Kawhi and his family members that are not technically allowed by NBA rules, and that's what we're going to be talking about in today's video. But quickly, before we get started, if you enjoy content like this, then consider subscribing. I upload twice a day, every single day, so it's a great place for consistent NBA content. If something's happening in the NBA, it's pretty likely that I'm covering. You can also leave a like rating on the video as well. It helps me out a ton. It lets me know that you're enjoying this specific piece of content, and it helps get the video out to more people on YouTube as well, which is super helpful for me. And you can check me out at various socials at the bottom of the screen in the link tree down in the description below. Any kind of different social media platform, I'm probably there. You can hang out with me outside of these videos over there. But with those things said, let's talk about what exactly is being reported here. So I'm going to be looking at my screen here a little bit just so that I know that I have all the details right, and then we'll kind of unpack this whole thing and talk about what it could potentially mean. So apparently, there's this guy that is suing Jerry West, who has an executive role within the Clippers, for not paying him a previously agreed upon $2.5 million for convincing Kawhi Leonard to sign with the Clippers. So West and this guy, according to him, had this agreement where he was going to be paid for his services to recruit Kawhi Leonard to the Clippers in whatever way he apparently had the connection to be able to do so. And he's upset because apparently he never received payment, or he didn't like how the whole thing went down, or now he's just trying to get the Clippers in trouble. I'm not 100% sure what his goal here is. Now, according to this guy, him and West came to an agreement that he would help convince Kawhi to come to the Clippers, and the Clippers were the best place for Kawhi to go. And apparently this was after Kawhi had already decided he was not going to return to Toronto. He was looking at his other options, whether that be the Lakers or the Clippers. And this guy was apparently supposed to, really be the convincing factor for Kawhi. Not only that, but he also claims that he told the Clippers exactly how to pitch being a Clipper to Kawhi in the free agency meeting with West and Doc Rivers and whoever else Kawhi met with. And he informed them that if they were able to get Paul George, it would significantly increase their chances of getting Kawhi in a free agency situation. At some point, the Clippers found out if we get Paul George, Kawhi is going to be an LA Clipper. And this guy's claiming that they got that information because they told him to go find out what they needed to do, and then he went and told them. And of course, Jerry West has since come out and said that none of this is true, that that's not how it went down, that they were talking to whoever they needed to, agents or otherwise, but nobody was being specifically paid by the Clippers to recruit Kawhi Leonard outside of actual NBA personnel like Doc Rivers, who were in a free agency meeting with Kawhi. Now, the interesting part is this is not the first time that a similar level investigation has been opened up into the Clippers signing of Kawhi Leonard, because at the time that he was signed, there were some complaints from other teams, presumably the Raptors and the Lakers, that Kawhi's uncle Dennis, was asking for benefits that are not permissible by NBA rules in exchange for Kawhi's signature in free agency, similar to how big-time college athletes get their family members or themselves special perks that are not necessarily, part of NBA or NCAA rules. And this guy was asking for, reportedly, a house, use of a private plane, and even an ownership stake within the franchise in which Kawhi ended up signing. And these teams, the Raptors and the Lakers, reportedly complained that Kawhi's uncle was asking for these things in free agency meetings with them, and he didn't end up going with either Toronto or LA, or the Lakers. So what did he end up getting to end up going to the Clippers? That's their complaint. Now, again, all these things have been reported but since denied. But let's kind of talk about the legitimacy of this. So I really question the first part. This idea that there was some guy that had connections to Kawhi and Kawhi's uncle and was, hired by the Clippers to go and convince Kawhi that the Clippers were where he needed to be. And that, he gave them this insider info on what they needed to do to get Kawhi. I find that really unlikely because in communication with these players in a free agency situation, if Kawhi wanted to relay information to the Clippers that, hey, I'm interested in being there. I'm interested in being in LA. I don't really want to go. I will go to the Lakers, but I don't really want to because LeBron is there. I don't want to go play and be the second or third guy on LeBron's team. And I want to be in LA rather than Toronto. But they're all working on different ways to convince me to be there. And you guys have the ability to go out and get someone that I really want to play with, and that's Paul George. And if you go get him, I'm probably going to be an LA Clipper. So go out there, find a deal, see if you can find one for George, and then I'll potentially join. If that was information that Kawhi wanted to relay to the Clippers, there are ways to do that do not involve having this random dude being hired by the Clippers to go and talk to Kawhi. Kawhi's agent, just different ways that they can relay that information in a way that does not directly break NBA rules. So that is more than likely what happened, in my opinion, is Kawhi was having meetings, Kawhi was sitting down and thinking about what he wanted, and relayed information to a handful of teams that ideally he wants to play with another star, and ideally that other star would be Paul George, which is why there were possibilities of George potentially going to Toronto, or obviously potentially going to LA. And within those discussions, the Clippers obviously were made aware of that, and that's why they made that move to get Paul George in the first place, rather than this guy going and telling, Kawhi, or going to tell the Clippers that is what Kawhi wanted. Now, do I believe that there were probably some people that were trying to convince Kawhi to go to the Clippers? Yes, but I don't believe that they were hired by Jerry West to go out and do that. That seems unrealistic to me, to say the least. Now, the other part of it, where Kawhi's uncle was asking for benefits in exchange for Kawhi's signature, I'm a little bit more willing to listen to that, because I wouldn't be surprised if these kinds of things happen. Now, it would seem a little bit odd, wouldn't it? Because Kawhi is signing a $190 million contract. So if this guy wants a house, or if this guy wants, use of a private plane, Kawhi, if they're really that close, would be able to provide those things for him. So that part seems a little bit odd, but I wouldn't be surprised if similar level things have happened in the past within free agency. And there were probably a lot of teams, the Lakers and the Raptors specifically, that were surprised that the Clippers were actually able to land Kawhi and Paul George, given the history of the franchise and given the fact that they're the Clippers and that those two guys chose the Clippers for the Lakers and the Raptors, who were really successful organizations and just won the title. Now, more than likely, here's what happened. Kawhi told the Clippers, hey, I want to be there. That's my first choice, but I'm not going there by myself. I'm not going there to play with Lou Williams and Patrick Beverley. You guys need to go and get somebody else. Paul George would be my preference. The Clippers are like, okay. They go call the Thunder. They say, we want Paul George. He has the opportunity to come here and play with Kawhi. Or they go and tell Paul George, hey, you have the opportunity, go request a trade and we'll make a move. So, okay. So they end up making that move for Paul George. Kawhi ends up going there. And that is as a result of A, the location. Both those guys want to be in LA. And B, the fact that the Clippers have shown to be a really competent franchise over the last couple of seasons under new ownership. They looked like a team that was moving in the right direction, and that was attractive to both Kawhi and Paul George. And later on, these teams like the Raptors and Lakers got a little bit upset that they lost out on Kawhi in free agency. They felt like maybe there was some wrongdoing. They complained. The league looked into it, and they didn't end up finding anything of it. And that's probably what's going to happen here. The league is going to look into it, and nothing's really going to happen. They often have investigations like this, and almost never do they result in any kind of punishment, because they basically just want to show publicly, hey, we're looking into this, we're doing something about it, we're not just letting this go by, and then ultimately nothing ends up happening. Now, if for some reason the Clippers were found to have done something wrong in the recruitment of Kawhi Leonard, there is some precedent in the range of a couple of first-round picks being taken away from a team if they do circumvent league rules in a free agency situation. That, I think, is an unlikely scenario, but it's at least one thing to keep in mind if that is the way that it goes down. But at the end of the day, more than likely, it was just the Clippers in LA. That's where Kawhi wanted to be. He didn't want to go and play with LeBron. If LeBron wasn't a Laker, Kawhi probably would have become a Laker, but that's not what he wanted to do. And now, Paul George is signed long-term. I would imagine Kawhi will this offseason as well, unless something really drastic happens with the Clippers this upcoming season. And then we'll kind of have to go from there and see what happens. But I think it's interesting to look into stuff like this. This is a very strange piece of NBA news, but the more that I think about it, the more I think it's unlikely that anything crazy wrong went down in the recruitment of Kawhi Leonard to become an LA Clipper. But that is going to be the end of today's video, and I thank you all very much for watching. Once again, my name is Tucker. If you missed any of my previous videos, then be sure to check out the boxes on screen. Thanks again. Hope you guys have an awesome rest of your day, and I will see you all next time.